party's over.
I don't think so.
Take a seat. We would be honored if you would join us.
Yo, everybody, welcome. Star Wars After Party, we're here. We're going to have a fun time. I'm going to have fun. Are you going to have fun?
I'm going to have fun.
Don't talk yet. Just nod for the YouTube people. All right, see, we're already having fun. You thought that you were going to come in here and get some curmudgeons talking about Star Wars? No way. We're going to have a good time. We can't wait. We're talking our favorite Jedi. That's for you, Ben Gager. We're talking our favorite Jedi, the best of the awesome Jedi. Yeah, that's right. We're also going to be talking a little Star Wars news. We got some comic news. We got some other things here and there. It's going to be a good time. I can't wait. If you're here for the first time, my name's Tyler Bodkins. Been in this fight since I was 8 years old. And with me, Obi Wan didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. He did. It's Cameron Porter.
You can go back when I spoke a second ago. You could just flash a black mark over my face and it just say censored.
I will cut that right out of the audio so fast. You
keep me in my place.
You won't even know. You won't, man. But I'm gonna take care of it in post. Don't you worry about it. No, I mean it's okay. We can. We've got our little rhythm here, but every now and then we can snap out of it. We can just show them that there's some structure here, but don't think your boys aren't going to mess with the rules.
That's right.
We will.
Yeah.
We're not a couple rule followers. We got our whiskey here. We're sipping on this. The reason why I brought it is it's a bottle of New Riff, which is like a craft distillery. But this is a single barrel picked by John O's Liquor. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it's got this awesome Mando sticker on the back. This pick is called Riff is the Way. So we're drinking a little Riff is the Way today. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm sure it's good. I know I've had it before, so cool. Dude, we're talking about a good bit of stuff. I finished Obi Wan, so we're gonna definitely talk about that. Particularly if he makes one of our lists, that's cool. So we'll see about that. I'm really excited to hear what your favorite 3 Jedi are because, I think I know.
Oh, yeah?
But I think I know.
Oh, okay.
But, this will be interesting.
Yeah, I want you to guess then.
Ooh, okay. How about this? We guess each other's favorite 3 Jedi.
Okay.
But we don't, stoic. We don't say with our face.
Oh, yeah.
We're just going to let the mystery unfold for the people.
So
then,
poker face.
Full poker face. Yeah. And then we'll talk a little bit about some news and some things that's coming out. It should be a really good time. So, let's start with a guess. Cameron, who do you think my favorite 3 Jedi are? I'm very curious. All right. I'm not going to look at you.
Coyote Moondai 3 times.
You know what? Game over. Right on. No. You're good, man. All right, let me guess for you, Cameron.
Wait. No. In 3, so in no particular order.
Well, no. Okay, that's fair.
I'll give you my three guesses for you.
All right.
And I'm not even going to look at you when I say these.
So sit here and sip this whiskey.
Obi Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, and Qui-Gon Jinn.
All right, so my guess for you is going to be Qui-Gon Jinn, Anakin Skywalker, and I'll go. This is where it gets a little tricky, but I'm fairly confident about those. I'll go Obi-Wan for you. Yeah, so full. I'm going full prequels for you.
Yeah,
because
when I was thinking of my list earlier, it was all leaning very prequels. So I'll give you that.
All right, good. So how about this? Do you have, because I ended up with, do you have a strong honorable mention? Because I have a strong honorable mention because when I compiled my list, I was like, dang, but nah, actually I got to bring this one in and that means I got to take that one out, but they're a real strong. So as we almost always do on this show, can we throw an honorable mention in?
Yeah, I've got one in.
Let's start with that. Who's your honorable mention?
Porter Engel.
Oh, the Blade.
The Blade.
Wow, yep. Cameron, fill in the
I took
look. If you're over here, you're like, who is that?
Yeah.
Look, Cameron's gonna take you to school. Put on your little nerd glasses. Bust out your little notebook that you carry around in your little backpack. Cameron, tell the people who Porter Engle is. Please.
Porter Engle was a Jedi during the High Republic era. He was covered extensively in the mini series of the High Republic called The Blade.
The Blade, yep.
He looks like a gray Hellboy with
that's right,
long white hair.
That's a great description. His kind of like Jedi, like almost like the Qui-Gon to his Obi-Wan. Not that she was his master, but he just always worked with Barash, who later was dubbed, the Barash Vow, which we learned about. I want to say it was in the Acolyte. I feel like, or it was at least something like that. Mm-hmm. I think they did explicitly mention that, and so that was like his. They referred to each other as brother and sister. They were just very close in the Force. They worked together really well, and later, because the miniseries is like a backstory set in like Phase 2, but we originally meet him as an older man who is like a cook, basically. Yep. He's so old, he's like 300 years old. He doesn't really fight anymore, but it's kind of known like that
he's a legend.
Bad, and I think Charles Soule, the great Charles Soule, who we will be talking about later. Mm-hmm. I got some good Charles Soule news for you that you're gonna love. But the great Charles Soule did that. I mean, it seems like if you give Charles Soule a mini-series in the Star Wars universe, it's going to be great. Yeah. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, The Blade was excellent. So that's a really solid honorable mention.
Yeah, he was just like I don't really have a whole lot of information on him. That was just a really fun arc, getting to watch how insane he was in battle. Yeah. And I even read a couple of articles and watched a couple of videos of people referencing other material of him, talking about how he truly would have rivaled like Yoda easily. Yeah,
he was bad. Yeah, he was bad with the blades. I mean, they didn't call him the Blade for nothing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. My honorable mention. I mean, come on. You're gonna be maybe you'll be surprised that he's not in the top. Okay, that's fair. But honorable mention. Qui-Gon Jinn. Yeah. Yeah.
He almost made it on my list, too.
He gets an honorable mention. Good. So I could talk about Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
I mean, he was too pure for this world, really, you could say. Mm-hmm. I like Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon, I heard this phrase the other day. I don't know who said it. I can't remember who it was. But I identified with it a little bit. The phrase was that there are two kinds of people in this world. There are believers, and the way they describe a believer is someone who believes the things that are told to them, be it the authority figures or just, they hear something, they believe it, they carry it as a truth. Believers. And it's not a bad thing. It's just there are those, and then there are seekers. Seekers are those who are a little less convinced that they're hearing the truth, and they got to go find it for themselves. I feel that way, and I feel like Qui-Gon Jinn is very much that way. Yeah, absolutely. Qui-Gon Jinn was absolutely a seeker of the truth, and it ruffled a lot of feathers for him. It certainly kept him out of the Jedi Order for sure, or the Jedi Council. And it seems like he, especially if you read, I want to say it's Master and Apprentice, and there's also another book, maybe it was Jedi Lost, or I think it's what it's called, the book about Dooku, where it really goes to him being very fascinated with the prophecies and things like that. Mm-hmm. And that sort of got a lot of side eyes from the Jedi Order. Even, we saw it in, what was it? Was it Tales of the Empire? No, it was Tales of the Jedi. Where, originally when he told everyone that he encountered a Sith Lord, like, they didn't believe it. Mm-hmm. And so, Qui-Gon sort of walks the middle road. He walks his own path, and man, you got to respect him. I mean, not only that, but like he's like the one who discovered the way to stay attached to his, almost like his, I don't want to call it his ego, but just, and it wasn't quite his body, but his identity. There we go. He was able to stay attached to his identity even after death. So it shows that, Qui-Gon, he's the guy. He's one of the, he's I think as the kids would say it, he's one of them ones. Yeah, he's one of the ones.
Yeah.
Not the ones like the father and the daughter and this. I don't know where that came from. I still am a little bit kind of like scratching my head on why everyone wants to call the Mortis gods the ones, but you can at me about that later if you have an answer. I would love to hear it. Qui-Gon, solid.
Yeah. I love Qui-Gon. He was a strong contender for me just because of like every time I think of Qui-Gon, I think of him with his arms crossed, like he's just really thinking. He's like really thinking about something. There's that one scene. There's a scene in the Phantom Menace of him with his hand on he's got his arms crossed and he's got his hand on his chin. He's just kind of like deep in thought. And I think about that every time I think about him. You know, Yoda is somebody who's so just like confident and like assured by the Force.
Right.
Qui-Gon looks to me like somebody who is confident in it, but still curious and willing to think comprehensively about stuff.
I like the way you say that. I think that what Qui-Gon is very comfortable with when it comes to the Force is the mysteriousness of it. He doesn't claim to know or have the answers. He's a little bit more comfortable with the uncertainty. I don't know. There's also, you mentioned the Phantom Menace, and I've discussed this on a previous episode. It's been a while, but there's a deleted scene, which when I say what the scene is, it kind of is like, yeah, maybe that should have been deleted. But it's a great Qui-Gon scene where a young Anakin is fighting a young Greedo. And they're fighting because Greedo says that Anakin cheated to win the race. And so when Qui-Gon asks why they were fighting, he says that. And he goes, well, is that true? And Anakin says, no. And he goes, well, then you know the truth. Don't allow them to let you stoop down to their level.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
That's
so
good.
because like, look, we're living in a world.
Yeah.
It's a bit tumultuous out there. There's a lot of people who claim to have the truth and you're wrong and they're right and da-da-da. And you know what? If you've got that truth, you don't have to resort to their fighting ways.
That's right.
You can just rise above it. So it's great advice at any time, maybe particularly now. Maybe they should bring that Qui-Gon quote back in an animated series or something. It's
that'd
real
be good. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get in the top 3 proper. I mean, it's only been 13 minutes, but in true Star Wars After Party fashion, let's get into what we're actually here to talk about. How about that? So maybe we 3, 2, 1 it. Like we'll start with our third and work. Are yours in order? Let me ask that.
I think. Yeah. Mine are in order.
Remind me who you said mine were. You said Qui-Gon,
Ahsoka, and who was the other one?
I think is what you said. Yeah.
Qui-Gon, Ahsoka,
And then I said
Obi-Wan.
for you,
Yeah.
I said Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
But you said no to Qui-Gon already. So okay, all right.
You're out.
Who's your? You're out, man. Qui-Gon didn't make my list either. All right. Number 3, Cameron. Who you got?
Number 3 would be Anakin Skywalker.
Woo!
Yep.
I'm 1 for 3, baby.
Yep.
All right. Talk to me about Anakin Skywalker. I knew he was going to be on your list.
Yeah, I don't know.
Spoiler alert. He's not on mine.
Dang. Okay.
And we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
But
it was hard. I wanted to pick some that were not the obvious choices, but obvious choices are that for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a real obvious choice on mine.
Yeah. Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker was like my favorite as a kid growing up.
He's bad to the bone. The first half of that movie is so great.
Yep.
Then he just has to listen to old Palpy.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
All of the like growth we see in him through the Clone Wars and like transitioning from Padawan to Knight, teaching Ahsoka, all that was great stuff. And then to see a bit of his struggle or a little bit of his identity show through as, you know, in his redemption scene in Return of the Jedi, to see him as Obi-Wan or as Vader in Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Just saw that today.
Such a complex character. So when I say Anakin Skywalker, I mean
all of
prequel Anakin, but also like, you know, the little bits of him that we recognize. You know, when you're watching Star Wars and you see Vader, every once in a while that thought will cross your mind and be like, man, that really is Anakin Skywalker in there. And that's always what like excites me so much about that character.
So I feel like there are 2 different thoughts on this, and I'll share my thoughts. But when you think of Anakin Skywalker and you see Darth Vader, you're of the thought then that he was Anakin throughout, or did he cease being Anakin and then he returned to being Anakin? Like, how do you conceptualize him? For instance, when you see Darth Vader walk into the Tantive 4, or when you see Darth Vader in Cloud City when he chops off Luke's hand, like, you see Anakin Skywalker. Like, in your mind, that's Anakin.
I picture, in Darth Vader's suit, I picture Mustafar Final Duel Anakin.
Wow.
The dark eyes, like,
wow.
I know he looks way different. We obviously see him like in his healing chamber and stuff. Like he does not look like Hayden Christensen, but
that's how you're visualizing.
I visualize him in his mind, and I think when he turned, I think his hate became so great that it just completely blinded everything else. So I see Anakin Skywalker, but he doesn't see Anakin Skywalker.
Interesting.
It's like all he sees is hate. All he is. Vader, Anakin died a long time ago. He's like solely focused on his hate, and
man,
yeah,
I gotta say, Cameron, that's a very nuanced and very respectable point of view.
That was right off the dome too.
Well, I mean, it's just the way you see it. I love it.
Yeah.
Me, because I know you watched A New Hope first. We've discussed this, but by that time, at your age, the prequels are already there. So, would you say that the time in between, for instance, like you watching the original trilogy and you watching the prequels, they had to be pretty tight? Do you remember?
I don't really remember. I think they had to have been tight. I just
like not more than a couple years.
Oh no, yeah, it was all pretty tight in that respect.
Because for me, I'll share it like this. First off, I have a very hard time watching the original trilogy and seeing anything other than Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see or think of Anakin almost at all.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, it could just be a difference in our, and I'm not, of course I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying it's just not the way I conceptualize it. And I wonder if part of that is because, again, 8 years old, 1997, I watch Darth Vader be Darth Vader. And then, call it 2 years later in 99, I see a young Jake Lloyd Anakin. But it would be another 3 years after that, 2002. So we're talking 5 years of my formative watching of Star Wars before I ever saw what Hayden Christensen looked like.
Oh, yeah.
And so for me, I think that I just burned through those VHS copies so much that it's like, that's Darth Vader.
Yeah, I think I probably watched the prequels more than I did watch the original trilogy. So I see it more. And I've always been really drawn to things that confuse or like are hard to comprehend in my imagination. So I like to watch the original trilogy and I like to see Darth Vader and think about how crazy it is. It's like, dude, that's Anakin. That's wild, Anakin is in that suit.
Yeah.
That is the same man who was a little boy in that pod race. That's the same man who was like trained by, like,
you're totally right.
I like to take my mind on that side of it and not think like, yeah, Darth Vader is so cool. It's just like, whoa, that is Anakin.
And I think that for me, like, it wasn't until Obi Wan Kenobi, the show, that I really felt that, seeing him in the suit.
Yeah.
With the cracked helmet. I mean, like, I feel like that's when I first began to feel that way. So I feel like if I could pick, I would want to see it like you. I love the way you see it. For whatever reason, it's just not the way.
I mean, it's all in my imagination. Like, absolutely. I know that if we were to slice Vader's mask off, Hayden Christensen with his curly brown hair is not going to be there. Sure. But in my brain, it's the same mind.
I love it. Yeah. Now, I got to say the reason why Anakin Skywalker didn't make my list is, hey, I got some cool Jedi up in my top 3. But it's tough, man. I mean, I just watched Obi Wan Kenobi. I mean, I saw him kill so many younglings. Like, it's very tough for me to throw Anakin Skywalker. I get that he's the chosen one. And when you take out the idea of the Jedi as an order and him as a Jedi, he's the chosen one. But we're talking about Jedi that are or were or are just anyway connected to the Jedi Order. Like, it's tough for me to put him up there. I think there's like for me to put Anakin Skywalker up there, this is just me personally, and not have a Qui-Gon up there, like, that's tough for me, because like you look at Qui-Gon and all the stuff he did, and you look at all of Anakin's stuff, it's just tough. But I don't fault you. It's I I thought that you were going to do that because, I mean, at the end of the day, while Anakin was a Jedi, he was the best.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. I'll give you that. It's just for me, it's like I have a hard time. That's interesting. Whereas you have an easier time seeing Anakin Skywalker as Darth Vader. I have a harder time. But then whenever I think of Anakin Skywalker as a Jedi, I can't just think of him that way without thinking about Darth Vader killing younglings. So it's kind of weird. It's like I'm almost on the opposite side on this side. But anyways, okay.
What's
My
yours?
number 3, Ahsoka Tano.
I knew it.
I love Ahsoka. You were right. You're 1 for 3. You're 1 for 3 so far. Dude, I love Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
Can I wax poetic about Ahsoka for a minute?
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, all the things that she had to go through throughout the Clone Wars, meaning, being the apprentice to the chosen one. Like, think of that. Like, if you've ever felt like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to live up to this person whose shadow I'm under.
Mm-hmm.
The chosen one.
Yeah.
Then when you consider everything that happened to her towards the end of the Clone Wars, like her being excommunicated from the Jedi Order, them wanting to bring her back, but her saying no because she just feels like it isn't right. Everything she went through during Order 66, but you take all that, add into the fact her in Rebels, add into the fact her in the Mandoverse, what we got in Ahsoka, which is, one of my favorite Disney Plus shows. Like, I think she's great. She's that samurai warrior who, we see her grow into not just a fierce warrior, but like a compassionate person by the end of Ahsoka, who is sort of one with the Force and is willing to be taken and directed by the Force versus trying to exert her own will on the way that she thinks things should be. To me, even though she says I'm no Jedi, I think that ultimately where we see her end up in the end of season 1 of Ahsoka, she is the best of the Jedi, just being led by the Force. Beautiful, I think. I mean, so to me, she's up there. She's in my top 3. Also, she just looks cool. Yeah. Like the tendrils, and
those
the
white
blades,
sabers.
Those white sabers. Rosario Dawson just, to me, kills it. Ashley Eckstein, the original voice actress, like she killed. It's just so good, man. So it's hard for me to not throw Ahsoka up in the list. I'm so excited for season 2 of Ahsoka.
Yeah,
she's legit one of my favorites. Ahsoka.
I think if I had done a recent rewatch of Ahsoka, she probably would have been in my top 3.
I just finished it, and man, every time I rewatch it, something new pops out. I'm gonna throw it back out there. If you didn't watch Ahsoka and think it's great, there might be a little bit more meat on the bone for you to go back and rewatch, because Dave Filoni is putting some things out there. I know there's this echo chamber of, you have to watch Rebels, it doesn't make sense, and there's all this stuff, and they didn't weave together a good enough story. Look, man, no, I'm just gonna have to firmly disagree with that. I'm not a very disagreeable guy, but I would say if you don't think Ahsoka's great, maybe do yourself a favor, go back and rewatch. Yeah, the Force will guide you.
I'm overdue for a rewatch for sure.
All right, so moving over to number 2.
Number 2.
Who you got?
This was a tough one. I was torn between 2 for this.
I like
and
this.
I'll use the second one as my number 1 if my number 1 is disqualified.
Wait.
For some reason.
Hold on. What
yeah,
are you talking about?
I picked a Legends character for my number 1.
Oh my gosh, are we? All right. Well, I know it's not Revan because your boy Sully ain't finished KOTOR, but dang, I didn't think about Revan. All right, go ahead. Who we got?
My number 2 will be Obi-Wan, but with a caveat.
2 out of 3. I'm just throwing that out there, please.
Primarily Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan.
Oh, break that down, please. Because
Obi-Wan,
to me, it's we're so opposite on these things. I love it though, man.
I felt like
now. Wait, is Ben Kenobi Obi-Wan in the Obi-Wan show?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that makes sense.
I divide it between prequel Obi-Wan. Well, honestly, I divide it 3 ways. There's There's Padawan or Knight Obi-Wan.
Padawan Kenobi.
Yep, Padawan Kenobi. And then there's Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, and Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And then you got Ben Kenobi, which
is Obi-Wan in the original trilogy.
Yeah, once he starts his like
Rebels,
his whole exile type thing, that's Ben Kenobi.
I love that, man. I love the differentiation.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because honestly, man, when I said Obi-Wan, I was thinking prequels.
Really? Yeah.
And so it's cool to hear that, like, yeah, he's on your list, but actually more as Ben Kenobi. I'm intrigued. You got me on. I'm
visually here. Okay. Visually,
I'm eating out of your hand this episode. This has been fun.
Visually, Clone Wars Obi-Wan, I think is cooler with the like half clone armor, half Jedi robe thing. Like visually speaking, definitely way cooler. But as far as like impact and like strength as a Jedi, Exile Ben is like top tier for a couple reasons. Mainly his ability to come in and out of exile for things and still be just as like potent of a Jedi as ever. Like Obi-Wan wasn't out here training and keeping up with his skills and fighting when he popped up and killed Maul. He also wasn't necessarily.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
I think it. Please keep going, but I want to come back.
Well, I mean, like constant combat.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I think he was training in.
Oh, in his mind. For sure.
Yeah,
and that's why I like him more, because he was just so more like well-rounded. Because like Clone Wars era Obi-Wan can come off as a prude sometimes. You know, he's having to correct Anakin in a lot of ways. He's got to come down on him in a lot of ways. He's got to try to kind of keep him within the lines sometimes. So there are times that era Obi-Wan can kind of be a little bit of a snore, or like a parent, like a helicopter parent of some sort.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
But Ben Kenobi just seems so much more well-rounded. So, you know, the ability to defeat Maul. Think about the difference. Here's my two big points. The difference between where Ben was in his life and Vader was in his life when they dueled. So
in A New Hope?
In A New Hope.
Okay. Yep.
So to be able to be this recluse.
Yeah.
Very seldomly fighting. And on the other hand, Vader has spent his entire time like wreaking havoc. Yeah.
Yep.
So for them, and I know it was the original trilogy. I know it was A New Hope. You know, they were subject to the availability of the 70s, but there wasn't any crazy, like, he was able to hold his own really well against Vader. So they weren't able to go crazy with like what their moves would have been or whatever. And if you watch that duel, there's nothing too excitable about it.
Sure.
But he's able to block all of Vader's shots right up until he chooses to not.
Yeah.
So like that should tell you something about the strength of like his training in his mind to come out of like being a hermit and then knowing he was going to have to face Vader.
Can I throw a little philosophy your way?
Yeah.
So I would say, with what you just said, like this idea of like it shows where he was in his mind. To me, Obi Wan Kenobi at that time is a fully enlightened individual.
Yeah.
There's a passage in the Tao Te Ching. So ancient Eastern philosophy, of course, Taoism greatly influenced George Lucas, and amongst other religions, of course. But it's just, I say religion. It's more of a, like I said, I think of it more like a philosophy than a religion. But there's this passage that, I'm going to do it off the dome, so forgive me. Y'all can look it up. I don't know where it is, but it's in there. It talks about the idea that, I won't break it all down. We'll focus on the last part. It says, followers of life are 3 in 10. Followers of death are 3 in 10. Those who slowly drift towards death, also 3 in 10. It says, but there is said to be one who can travel through the lands, and neither rhino horn or tiger claw can pierce him, because in him there is no place for death. There is no place for a sword to enter, because he is such a fervent follower of life. And I think that's Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
He literally could not be killed.
Yeah.
Like Vader could not kill him. Even when Vader struck him down, ultimately the blade did not go through him.
Right.
Sound familiar?
Yep.
And not only that, but he ascended to a higher level, more powerful than Vader could comprehend, because what Obi-Wan realized is that he was a luminous being, that he was literally the cosmic force, life itself, and so he couldn't be killed.
Yeah.
And he knew that from his training with Qui-Gon. It's the same training you're talking about.
It wasn't like finite motivators
Right.
that kept him going and made him stronger the way that they did Vader. Like, you will find an end to your hate. You will find an end to your anger, but to be able to rise above circumstances that way is like a way more enlightened place to be. So
I love that, man.
That's my main point on Obi-Wan. My second point is just the amount of knowledge he was able to instill in Luke in such a short time. So to be able to come out of like his exile or hermit or whatever, I mean, he's watched over Luke from a distance for like 20 years.
I just watched him meet Luke.
Yeah. So to think about what he was doing in his like solitude, it was probably preparing himself mentally for facing Vader and preparing himself for this eventual, like, he knew that he would have a short window of time to impact Luke and like lead him towards the Force.
Yeah.
So all of that time in solitude allowed him to train for that. And I just keep thinking about that little Obi-Wan arc that we got like 2 years ago, where we got to see him like recounting all these. He's like, he's bunkered down. There's like a sandstorm going on, and it's just like pictures of him like journaling.
Yeah.
And then we get all these great flashbacks and him just reflecting on his life and like what he did right and what he did wrong and stuff. So by the time he did meet Luke, like for real, and like told him about his destiny and told him about his father and stuff, he was prepared to very quickly instill a lot of information in him that led him on to fulfill his destiny and move on and create a Jedi Order. Like, that was Obi-Wan's impact only that like stoked that fire for Luke. So
I love that. Now feels like an appropriate time. I did say last episode that I would update everybody on my Obi Wan Kenobi rewatch.
Yep.
And
he's joining us here now.
Oh, yeah, there he is. By the way, for those watching on YouTube, your boy Cameron did this today, and he went with a more minimal approach. And I'm kind of digging it. I always sort of, fill the whole thing out, but I like it, man.
Truthfully,
it's nice.
This book is really heavy, so I was worried that if I put too much on this shelf, it was going to crash down upon us.
Might actually be a hazard, so we're going to have to be real careful for the rest of the episode. But yeah, we got Star Wars: The Blueprints by J.W. Rinsler, the late great. We got Obi Wan Kenobi over here on Entertainment, and Solo, because Cameron's obsessed.
Who doesn't?
I don't know what to do about it. So let's talk about Obi Wan Kenobi for a second. We weren't potting at this time, so we haven't covered it. We haven't gone too much on record, and we decided we want to talk about it at least a little bit. So we'll give it a little 5 or 10, it'll be all right. I'll say it like this: I've shared that one of my favorite Obi Wan Kenobi memories is basically watching it. And I think that let me throw this out here, because I'm gonna say some things, but I think that's a totally valid experience. Like, there is something to be said about just the feeling of being in a present moment of just like, oh my God, for the first time in 15 plus years, I'm going to see Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. I've shared the story of, I was literally rethinking the day before the show dropped about my experience watching Attack of the Clones at midnight and how it was such a fun thing and how I wish I could do that now. But at that time, things were coming out at 3 a.m. on the East Coast. I wasn't staying up. They announced last minute they were dropping it at midnight. I stayed up till midnight. I got to watch it, along with, a million plus other Star Wars fans. It was a great experience. And so I still hold that as a top Disney Plus, like almost as big as like The Mandalorian when The Mandalorian first aired. Like, it was up there for me. It was big. So watching the show this time, I got to say that there are some things that, of course, I love. There's a lot of the Anakin stuff is really good, and I think that that's the best of what that show has to offer, or some of the best of what that show has to offer. Things that I feel like perhaps weren't the best, but I will say I feel like could be helped a lot by season 2. So I want to throw that little bit out there. Rewatching it, there's a bit of, I don't know how to say it. Ewan's giving a very different Obi-Wan for the first 5.5 episodes of this show.
Mm-hmm.
Where he talks quite wooden and stiff, Leia. You know, and it's a lot like the complaints that people had about Ahsoka for the first 5 episodes of Ahsoka. However, for some reason, I don't feel it as bad with Ahsoka, but with Obi-Wan, it's a little bit, it's like, where's the Obi Wan Kenobi from the prequels that I love?
It was very much like first half of Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan.
It was, I think it was, I'll have to go back, but I think it was turned up even more.
Yeah.
But you may be right. I would have to go back and rewatch that. Now, say all that to say, obviously he returns to the Obi Wan Kenobi that we recognize by the end of the show. And in that way, give me season 2.
Mm.
On the same kind of thought, I feel almost the same exact way about Reva. Reva, first off, Moses Ingrid, it's one of those two. She's fantastic. She's also in that show Queen's Gambit, and she absolutely is an incredible actor. So she kills it on a performance level. I have nothing but admiration for her, which is why I would actually like to see that character back in season 2. I say that to say, I understand why and how they used her from a storytelling perspective. I feel like a lot of what she accomplished in terms of getting Obi-Wan and Vader back together, I feel like it's a little much. It's just a little much to be throwing into this show that's about Vader and Obi-Wan, but also like Obi-Wan and Leia, and also, again, Obi-Wan and Luke. And I would say if there was anything I would kind of want to take out, it would probably be that. It would probably be the Luke stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't mind the Leia stuff as much. Not that there aren't some things that could be massaged, but for the most part, I was pretty astonished with the inclusion of Leia, and I like the little actress that plays her. I forget her name, but I think she's great. So, all that to say, there are some things that are a little off. However, if I got to see Reva's character explored and developed a bit more in a season 2 of Obi-Wan, for instance, what if they did do that idea that I'm always pitching? What if they did do Obi-Wan, Darth Maul, he has to dismantle his thing, and one of the people that he enlists to help is Reva. And maybe Reva meets her demise. I don't know. But I feel like that, where I get to see a former Jedi Padawan who was stabbed in the gut by Anakin Skywalker turn into now a former Inquisitor who was also stabbed in the gut by Darth Vader, and I get to see her come back and do something. I like that arc a lot better than where it was left. Let me just leave it at that.
Okay.
I think that Reva's character, I know she got a lot of hate. I'm not going to go into whether it was warranted or not. That's not really for me to decide. But I just would like the character more if I got a little bit more. After that after she was done with the show, when I watched this morning, I was like, I would like this more with some more development. Like, I feel like Star Wars has the tendency to put something out, us all go, and then they do it again, and you go, and then they do it again, and it's like, okay, that seems to be something that happens in Star Wars a lot. So I'm just saying, season 2 of Obi-Wan, give it to me. There's some good stuff, like Cameron said last time we talked about it. There's a lot of things that can probably be learned from and done better, and I want them to do it.
Yeah, I think I'll just say I think sometimes they tend to like kind of shoot down the middle with characters.
Absolutely.
So it's like either bring the character in or don't, but don't don't do it halfway. So either exclude Reva to exclude her to like kind of like just a side piece of the story.
Yeah.
Or bring her in more. And bring her in more would not have been the answer for
because of Vader.
Season 1 of Obi-Wan.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
good call.
My thinking would have been bring her in as a minimal character, just enough to do what you need to do to to propel the story between Obi-Wan and Vader. And then when you come back, like, give it enough to where it's like, oh, that's an interesting character. And then bring her in more on a season 2.
I like that. And
you got to hook people in with what they want or like what they like.
And it feels like you're saying like that Star Wars sometimes does this. I would even like add this kind of little extra thing. Either the show is an ensemble cast like Andor, or we're really only focusing on these couple of people.
Yeah.
Whereas it felt like they chose to really focus on like 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're going to start to bring in that many people, maybe it should be more of like an ensemble show like Andor, where like these characters were in these 3 episodes and no other episodes, or they were in these 3 and then they weren't in these, and then they came back later in smaller roles. Yeah, it's like they couldn't pick whether it was going to be an ensemble show or it was going to be a little bit smaller.
Yeah, because it muddies. It's like, you know, what about
it's lukewarm.
The bomber pilot in the sequel trilogy. What was her name?
Yeah, I don't know, but it was Rose Tico's sister.
Yeah. Like that character, or I would argue Finn, or like DJ. Like you bring in these characters that are like easily identifiable, and you follow them some, but it's like you don't really commit to it. You don't you're kind of as a viewer, you're trying to figure out like what is the purpose of this character, or where does this fit? But that's beside all the points. But But yeah, Obi-Wan.
All right, that was our Obi-Wan tangent.
Yeah.
We did a whole episode on it, or at least a good chunk of an episode a couple weeks ago. We're pro Obi-Wan season 2. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's still Ewan McGregor. It's still Hayden Christensen, whether he's in it or not, whatever. I'm just saying there is so much meat on the bone in terms of if you've already brought him back, go ahead and just bring him back. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
My number 2, Master Yoda, man. Come on. I mean, I'll talk about it a little bit. Yeah. He messed up a little bit in the prequels, was a main player that involved the entire galaxy going into darkness that would last decades. Yeah. He had his bad moments, but I would say, in that Yoda arc, he really had his awakening, and I think it equipped him for the way that he needed to act for episode 3, and in order to make sure that at least there was some hope left. Yeah, and Yoda did that. Like he did. He helped preserve just a little bit of the light. Yeah. That was his goal. His goal was to guard the light. And I think that he accomplished that goal to, as best as he could have done. When we see Yoda later in, the original trilogy, he's on it, man. He's pretty right about stuff. Like, I was talking with, it's funny enough, I'll bring real world into it a little bit. I was meeting with this guy yesterday who's kind of like a guy that I'm having sort of mentor me a little bit. And I knew he was the right mentor whenever he started talking to me. He's like, man, this part of your life. He's like, he's got a British accent, so he talks real cool. I'm not going to try to do it, but he's like, you're Luke Skywalker on Dagobah, and you want to go off to Cloud City. But if you go to Cloud City, you're going to get your hand chopped off, and you're not going to be able to save Han, and you're not going to be the one that rescues Leia. You're just going to go get your hand chopped off. Yoda was right, man. You got to chill, and you got to wait for the right time. You got to get done with your training first. And I was like, hey, it helped me out a lot with the situation I was dealing with. But I was also like, yeah, you know what? That was a good shout out to Hawk. Like, that was a good thought, is the fact that Yoda was right, man.
Yeah.
Like, he knew that Luke wasn't ready. And Obi-Wan just kind of gives him the, he throws his arms out. I'm like, man, this kid, man. But Yoda, he's the man. And what he says in Last Jedi, say what you want about the film. I love Yoda in The Last Jedi, man. It's tough to look at that and not love it. I mean, he's one of the ones. I don't know, man. So Master Yoda, what do you think about that?
I'm a big fan of Master Yoda.
All right. Yeah. On that we can all agree.
That's all I got.
He wasn't always the best guy when it came to like leading the order. There were some mistakes made, but overall, in the end of the day, he was a Jedi. He was a guardian of the light. So I'll give him that. Cameron.
Number 1.
Who's your number 1?
You said it earlier.
Who is it?
It's Revan.
How can that even be?
Revan is a character.
Let's pause for a sec.
Yeah, I haven't played.
No. Well, I got to say this. This is bull poodoo. This is no,
bantha fodder.
This is
bantha fodder.
Dude, really?
Yep.
You haven't even played KOTOR.
I know. I have read and listened to and watched videos on Revan and his story, and I think it's probably
you know the big spoiler?
Yeah.
Dude, you didn't know that when you started playing the game?
I knew about Revan before I even knew about Knights of the Old Republic or his like involvement in that game. I just thought Revan was a cool. Here's how it really happened.
This is
a couple of years ago.
I'm not telling you you're wrong, but I'm having some real issues with this.
A couple of years ago, there was a Revan minifigure that was released as Lego, and it was super rare, super valuable. And I was like, "Who the heck?"
That's why you like it, because you got all that money.
It made me curious. I was like, "Who is this character? What? I've never seen this guy before." So I went down the rabbit hole on my own volition, like researching this character. I listened to an audiobook on him. What was the book? The book on Revan?
I don't know. I didn't read the books. I played the game, Cameron. Well, I was 13 years old.
Listen, I don't have the time.
Oh my!
And I do not prioritize
the time. You can't watch a YouTube playthrough. It's 5 hours, man. 5 hours. It's only 5 hours.
I used to have a job that was very meticulous, very hands-on, and I could listen to and consume information and actually pay attention to it while I worked.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time listening to things and learning things that way.
Listen, man, who am I to hate on your list? It wouldn't be very Jedi-like of me. You know what? We're going to, of course, I say it, but of course we're going to allow it.
Yeah, it's just, search your feelings, Tyler.
Sense it to be true. Yes. Okay.
I just think he's a cool character.
All right.
The little kid in me was gravitated towards him because he looked really cool. He's got this Mandalorian mask, but he's got robes on over it, a purple and a red lightsaber. Like
you don't have to tell me. I mean, I love Revan.
The mystery surrounding him, his whole backstory. I gravitated towards it.
If you're watching YouTube, you can see I'm a little shook.
Yeah. Tyler's bothered. He's just probably not.
It's all good.
I'm a poser. I haven't played the game, okay, and I like the character.
I don't think you're a poser. That's not what it is. Like you would not. Let me tell you this about Cameron Porter, folks, because maybe there are those out there who maybe they just don't know you. Maybe they haven't been watching Star Wars After Party. Maybe they don't get it. Maybe they're thinking this guy Cameron, he didn't even play KOTOR. He's a poser. Let me tell you something about Cameron Porter, everybody. The man is not a poser. He didn't put Revan number one on his favorite Jedi list because Revan wasn't his number one on his favorite Jedi list.
Yeah.
Cameron Porter, for all of my complaints and my beating my head against the microphone, this man is the real deal. He's telling you that's his favorite Jedi. That's his favorite Jedi.
That is true.
You may not like it. You may not agree with it, but it is the truth.
That's correct.
So it is what it is. I respect it.
Me being so into ships and clone variants and stormtrooper variants, like when I think of the cool, like my favorite parts of Star Wars, armor, guns, weapons, like that's my favorite stuff.
I get it.
So when it comes to Jedi, I'm like, yeah, there's Yoda. Yeah, and it's what we talk about all the time. Like you are so much more philosophical about how you interpret Star Wars than I still kind of revert a lot to my kid brain of just like, oh, that guy looks cool. Like,
I get there
cool
too.
Armor.
I get there too, but like you do lean more that way. Yeah.
I have to be more intentional to get with it philosophically. Right. So I lean more towards just like what looks cool and what feels cool and who's like a cool swordsman or
That's what's so great about Star Wars, and this is what I think that all the people who are creating Star Wars need to realize. I would say need to realize. It's that there's levels to it.
Yeah.
There's levels to the game that is Star Wars. There's deep philosophical truths. There's mythology. There's, dramatic moments, but there's also comedic moments. And there's just cool fight scenes. And there's also, funny fart jokes. Like, it's all there. There are layers and levels to it. I think if you're going to play Star Wars...
Yeah.
The right way, you probably want to play all them different levels. That's all I'm saying.
You've got to, like... As a Star Wars creator, you've got to invest in the visual aspects of it for my sake a lot. Yeah. Like
just for Cameron.
Acolyte is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Super heavy on the philosophical side, not quite as heavy on the visual side.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got
there was some cool stuff, but
there's some cool stuff,
but
it was a lot of just Jedis in robes. And I'm not saying that reductively,
But it's like whereas a show like season 1 of Mando is giving you the cool ships, the cool guns, the cool No,
we're seeing Stormtrooper like Ahsoka. We got the why is the name blanking on me?
Thrawn,
Enoch. Soldiers. Enoch. Enoch's got a weird mask.
Absolutely.
The Stormtroopers have these weird red bindings, all of them.
You rewatch Ahsoka with this lens, you're gonna love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I can't wait for you to watch it.
It's a reason why like even I struggled with Rebels at times because the stylization of Stormtroopers was like kind of kiddish to me.
Yeah, I get that.
So I lean a lot heavily into like visual aspects of things. So Revan, really cool. His backstory, his whole development, like Jedi to Sith, back to Jedi, like that whole journey is just really, really cool to me.
Love it.
So cool factor is like
all right,
a big one for Cameron.
I'll give my number 1.
Give us
then
yours.
We'll do a quick bit of news because there is a quick bit of news. If you're watching on YouTube, maybe I can kind of I'm not fully in my normal uniform, but I mean, if you were to look at me and kind of see me take the all black and remove the hood, it's like obvious that I'm just trying to be Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, Return of the Jedi. Luke.
So I mean, it's Luke Skywalker is my number 1 favorite Jedi. I mean, he's my favorite character in Star Wars. I don't know what to say. He is the guy. He is the archetype for us. Like, you know, he is the hero. So I mean, it's tough for me to not go Luke Skywalker. And I mean, you know, from A New Hope, just his willingness to get involved, the Empire, his you know, everything that he did and all of his instincts, even though it sometimes led him into some weird spots, like ultimately he followed what he felt like he should do. Then you move to Return of the Jedi, he's definitely wiser, a little bit more discerning and able to, you know, make the right decisions whenever the time ultimately comes. Like, he's the guy, man. It's not that he doesn't make mistakes. It's that he learns from them. He grows from them. He looks cool. He is cool.
Yeah.
It's Luke Skywalker, number 1. I love him in Mando. I love him in Book of Boba Fett. I've never been more intrigued in the last 5 seconds of The Force Awakens. And I mean, as far as The Last Jedi goes, you know, I get it. It's a rough look for your boy Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, but ultimately, like,
he came through.
I get it, and he came.
That
through.
was such a cool, like the last scene of him with the whole,
with the twin sons and the way that I mean, I will say this: say what you want about The Last Jedi. I want you to write an ending for Luke Skywalker. Go ahead. Like, to be honest, it was probably as good as it could possibly be.
Yeah.
Because in the end, ultimately, he didn't pick... Like, people don't like the throwing of the saber thing, and I get it. But the last time we saw Luke Skywalker, he threw the saber away. Mm-hmm. And when you think of where he ended up at the end of Last Jedi, he did the right thing. He stood up against evil. But, bro, he did not have to pick a saber up to do it. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like... There are layers and there's levels to it, and there's a lot of great stuff about Luke in The Last Jedi. Scandal noted. You can at me if you want. But the point is, like, yeah, man, Luke Skywalker, he's the guy. He's the guy. My number 1. I'm a kid of the original trilogy, however brief it was before the prequels came out. Those were I wore them out. So it's Luke Skywalker.
I mean, think about the 2 main characters of Star Wars. You got Anakin, you got Luke.
Yeah.
Anakin messed up. He turned to the dark side. He made a lot of mistakes. He got back on track at the very end, but Luke, from like start to finish,
right,
pure in heart. I mean, he got like burnt out. Wasn't that? He got burnt out on like the structure and Jedi Order and everything that entailed that. But he never had like a dark path that he went down.
Yeah,
he was never slaughtering younglings. He just he felt really hard. Like he felt whatever he was doing. So
All right, we just had a Pro Tools glitch out, but I think we were pretty much done with all of that. So we're just going to jump right into the last few minutes. We're talking Star Wars news, and we're gonna talk about some stuff. There's some great stuff. There's some great stuff. We'll save the great stuff for last. There's some not so great stuff.
Yeah, I did read one headline of some not so great something.
So, we discussed and you know, I think the rumors were floating around that this Daisy Ridley Rey movie that is supposed to be coming out. It was supposed to be coming out next year, I think, at one point, or maybe it was 2026. Whenever it was supposed to come out, it's not. It's just not. The writer, Stephen Wright, who wrote Peaky Blinders, very solid writer.
More
Great
like
guy.
Steven not right.
Well, he's not right in this movie.
He's not right.
They lost him as a writer.
Might as well call him Steven Left.
I don't. Cameron,
Sorry.
You're killing it, bro.
Dad jokes.
You're killing it right now. All right, but yeah, he's gone. I don't know what to say other than that movie is. I think it's still gonna happen.
Yeah.
We were talking about it a little bit in the Discord. By the way, if you want to help us not have Pro Tool glitch outs, you can always join the Patreon. It's, patreon.com/starwarsafterparty. It gets you in the door at $3, and you will be able to listen to some bonus commentary. We're going through Clone Wars right now. If you want to listen to those, I'm doing those. And we're in the Discord just talking Star Wars. You can come hang out. It's $3 a month. You want to support the show? We'd love to have you. Appreciate it very much. That said, it does seem like they're going to want to keep doing the show, like as we were talking about there, or the movie rather. I just think that it's going to be a different creative crew. I even wonder about whether they might potentially switch directors. I'm just curious, man.
I'm very fearful about this movie.
Charmin Obaid Chinoy, by the way, she is still attached to direct from everything that I've seen, but I don't know.
From what I read on this, it had a lot to do with Kathleen Kennedy's recommendations, or because I had read that this writer had been taking scripts to her, to get edited and revised, and then it was just a real bad back and forth. So my fear is that there's too much. What's the right word? There's too much like
studio interference.
Or executive interference.
Kind of the same thing there.
I just, my worry is that there is something that Kennedy and Disney is looking for in this movie.
Yeah.
And they're being sticklers about it to a point where it's pushing creative people who are in charge of writing away because it's not being written as they intend it to be.
Now, to be fair, I can see it both ways in this. Let me be very clear. I'm gonna use myself as an example. If I want to write a song, and I want to write a song for me, I'm the only person involved. It's just me. I can go write that song however I want. I can make it exactly like whatever wants to come out. It doesn't seem to be any problem. Nobody else cares. I'm just making what I'd like to make.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I work with artists where it's their song, and I am a producer.
Correct.
And my job is to help the song be the best it can be and serve the vision that the artist has for the song.
Correct.
That's the way I view that job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I would say is, while I like to operate that way, and I think that can yield a better product, I don't necessarily think that that's exactly how it would work in terms of the artist being a Stephen Wright and the producer being like a Kathleen Kennedy. To me, it's actually almost the other way around. And what I mean is this, like, Stephen Wright doesn't own Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Disney does. And they have plans that, and I don't know the situation. I'm not in that situation. I'm giving an alternate point of view because we don't know what the story is.
Right.
It could be exactly what you said. It very well may be. But I also would say that, like, sometimes as creatives, we get a little bit like, hey, I want my vision to be seen. Mm-hmm. But what I mean is, if I'm the producer and I'm telling the artist, I want my vision to be seen, but it's the artist's song. In other words, it's Disney's Star Wars movie.
Right.
It's not Stephen Wright's Star Wars movie. As far as I see it, I mean, it's murky ground. And this is the problem with, by the way, like artistry and corporations. Mm-hmm. These things, these moral quandaries do exist, and there's no clear-cut answer. Yeah. Because technically, it's Disney's money. They're the one, and they may have a vision that connects to, maybe they learn from the lesson in the sequels, meaning maybe they're trying to connect this Rey movie with the Mando movie, with the Dawn of the Jedi movie. And maybe Steven's not doing what the studio really needs, which is the synergy of all those films.
Yeah.
Could be. We don't know. So that's all I'm saying is like, does it suck that the studio and the creatives can't seem to get along? Yeah. But let's just all remember we don't really know the story. So, because it's easy for us to say it's Disney, it's Kathleen Kennedy, it's Jon Favreau, it's Dave Filoni. Maybe. Or maybe Stephen Wright. Just because he's a great writer doesn't necessarily, and I don't know him at all. I'm just saying, we just don't know.
Yeah.
I think that's just an important thing to consider.
There's I don't know. I'm just very hesitant about this movie. There just seems to be so much scandal already around it, and it hasn't even like really begun.
Let me tell you the one piece of this movie that I feel very confident in, and this is not a slight to any of the aforementioned people that we've talked about this entire time. The one person I feel very confident in, Daisy Ridley.
Yeah.
She's the one person you got to have for this movie. I'm not saying that Steven couldn't have written a good one. I'm not saying that Sinead couldn't direct a great one. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying in Daisy I trust. I think that she's great. I think she'll do great. And I think if they get the right people creatively and everything's top down feeling good, they'll make a great film.
Yeah.
I believe that they could. Whether they will or not remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But I'm optimistic. I like to think so.
It's just troubled waters. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic too. Like I want Star Wars to be great always.
Absolutely.
I want more of it all the time.
One of the things we were talking about earlier, you were talking about the way that they kind of like play a little hot or cold with it, and they instead of finding sort of the middle ground and what I was going to say back then was just this idea of like, and we want them to find the middle ground. Like we want Star Wars to be great. We want Disney to be successful and all the executives and everyone to be successful. So we're pulling for these things to be great at all times, even if there's some stuff that we're like, could have been a little better.
Yeah.
It is what it is ultimately. All right. Final bit of news. This is some good news.
Yeah.
Are you ready for this?
Hit me with it.
Charles Soule. He's coming back.
Thank God.
He is doing a Star Wars mini series starring, who would you want? All right, let me say this. Charles Soule. Think of the films, all 9 films. What's a character you want Charles Soule? I mean, you may not say this character, but we're talking main characters. Who do you want Charles Soule to write a comic book about? What would just be?
Light or dark side?
Sick.
Good character or bad character?
Dark side.
Heck yeah. Dooku?
That's a good one. He's not doing Dooku. He's doing another Kylo Ren miniseries.
Oh, nice. Beautiful. He almost, honestly, I considered him for my list of, I know we were doing Jedi, not Sith, but I do like that character despite my personal feelings about the sequel trilogy.
So I'm going to read this for you. It says, it's been 5 years since Adam Driver's, and this is on Gizmodo, Adam Driver's Kylo Ren faded away in the closing moments of Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. Since then, Disney and Lucasfilm have been careful to avoid doing much of anything set in the sequel trilogy's aftermath or its general time frame, but the two companies must think now's the right time to give old Ben Solo an ongoing comic. This is going to be an ongoing. I thought it was a miniseries. Wow.
Oh, wow. So like a full term.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I thought it was a miniseries. I read it very briefly.
I still haven't read that.
You haven't read Rise of Kylo Ren?
The trade back that you gave me.
Oh, dude, go home and read Rise of Kylo Ren. Charles Soule crushes writing for Kylo Ren.
I bet.
It's going to be so sick. All right, let me keep reading. Written by Charles Soule. Star Wars, The Rise of Kylo Ren. We just said that. And drawn by Luke Ross, who drew for The War of the Bounty Hunters.
Oh, good.
That's what's up.
Yep.
The Legacy of Vader series is what it's called. We'll pick up with Ren after the events of The Last Jedi. Looking to finish what his grandpa started, the story will start with Ren exploring the remnants of Vader's castle on Mustafar, and he'll later trek through the rough, coarse sands of Tatooine. If that weren't interesting enough, we'll also get to see how Kylo did as the First Order's supreme leader after he went and sliced Snoke in half. Let me stop right here. I am so stoked to hear.
I'm really excited about
all of this.
Yeah.
This is so dope. I cannot wait to read this. And Charles Soule is gonna
crush.
Kill it, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on.
I want more. I mean, yeah.
Yo, let's try to get Charles Soule on this podcast. I know we're tiny, but I'm at least gonna message him.
I do like. There were things from the sequel trilogy that I wanted more of, and Kylo Ren was one of them.
All right, I like it. I'm gonna try to get Charles Soule on here.
Yeah, his little obsession with Vader. And I did just read the first issue of Battle of Jakku today, so I got to see Leia with her little like Vader's mask interaction thing, which was cool
because that ties into the Force.
And that literally reminded me.
Yep, dude,
that's gonna be awesome.
So I'll read this here. Last little bit. Soule explained that his new book will continue to shine a light on an unknown part of Kylo Ren's life, particularly since the events of the first two movies are still in his mind. He's truly lost at this particular moment. All of that emotion is swirling around and making him deeply unstable, angry, and dangerous. He's looking for any form of guidance he can get, even if he won't admit it. And so he turns to just about the only thing he's got left, the legacy of his grandfather, the Sith Lord Darth Vader. Deeper insight will also be provided on Vader himself. The Soule was mum on what to expect on that front. Yo.
Absolutely.
Comes out February 25th.
Nice.
The art looks killer. I'm so pumped for this.
I'm going to go add it to my pool.
I am so excited for this. Yo, if you're not reading Star Wars comics, we often talk about how they're fun to read, and we understand that sometimes it's difficult to find a place to jump in. Yo. That's it.
Yeah.
That is absolutely the time to jump in on comics. That's going to be a great run. I can already promise you Charles Soule is going to kill it. It's going to put a lot of light on the sequel trilogy that I think is going to ultimately bridge that gap and really flesh things out in an even better way.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren is such a great character. Charles Soule writes him so well. The art looks fantastic by Luke Ross. It's going to be sick.
Yeah, I think so.
I can't wait.
That's awesome. That's great news.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we'll end it on a high note. Let's go ahead and land this ship. We'll be back next week. We'll find some more high notes. I don't think that, it's going to be tough for us to find. There's always some good stuff to talk about when it comes to Star Wars. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Cameron, you seem like you got the juice, man. You look like you about to want to watch some Star Wars. What do you think you might get into this week? Is there any chance that you and your girlfriend are going to start
Sunday.
Mandoverse?
Sunday. Yep.
Yo, Book of Boba Fett.
Book
episode
of Mando
1.
Fett. Yeah, Book of Boba Fett episode 1.
On Sunday.
So
the next time we pod, we get a good little update?
Yep.
Bro, I'm ready for it. I can't wait to see what you think going back in for the first time in a while. I can't wait to hear what she thinks. I'll have to figure out something. I might watch Empire Strikes Back. I was told that I should, so I think that's what I'm going to do.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll talk about that next time. Until then, Tyler out.
Cameron out.
This party's over.
Dude, that was solid, Cameron.
That was solid.